Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a weekly therapy session that you can voyeuristically listen in on between two friends. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
Michael in London, Ivanka in an island off the coast of Croatia.
Indeed.
Is that, have I got the hang of that? Even though it sounds like we're both just English. She's not even that English.
I'm pretty English. I've got a passport and everything.
I see.
Born there, I was.
I need to get me Irish. I need to get me Irish EU passport, ancestry passport. This week we're gonna I have just insisted on talking about my stuff because I want to talk about some stuff around happiness, some stuff around changes in life, and that, because I've got an app called Changes. So, and just the ways that people think about change, the ways that people are in denial about change, and just the idea of should we be pursuing happiness? How does that sort of pursuit of happiness actually pan out, and how realistic is it, and what's involved there? And also I need some therapy on my strange reactions to compliments, which are seem weird and twisted and impossible to fathom.
And as an unqualified therapist, I'm very happy to assist.
Excellent.
I think the name change from the Happiness app to the Changes app was a good thing, because I think the pursuit of happiness is an odd idea that, and I can explain myself. I also think that however much we can become comfortable with change, we can perhaps sometimes become too comfortable with change, in which we then don't want to commit to anything, because the state of flux is in itself actually quite enjoyable sometimes in some aspects, which I shall go on to clarify. So yes, I think there's some nice things about noticing. I think there's some differences between you and me in how we record, our attitudes to data and recording, but they're not that big a difference. So yes, so it's a sort of similar behaviours in some ways, but at least I think slightly different manifestations. But there you go.
Okie dokie. That'll do as an intro. How are you going?
Big news this week. Big news. The child has learnt how to swim.
Learn to swim, you say?
Learnt to swim, she has. It's quite funny to watch her, but she's very pleased with herself. It is now made...
in the sea, is that?
In the sea,
that is. In the sea,
salty sea. She's swimming.
Do you think it's easier, or is that more terrifying than a more controlled aquatic environment, or is it fine?
The word terrifying is in itself quite insightful, Michael. The sea she has absolutely no fear. She's long had a buoyancy aid thing that she's happy. She never is conscious of how deep the sea is, where she is, or what's under her. I've spent a lifetime getting over those kind of what was that? Some grass touched my foot, type thing. But she seems utterly oblivious to all of that stuff. So the challenge now is to go down the beach and relax even for a nanosecond, because she obviously can't swim very well and yet has a lot of confidence. So she's basically like your worst kind of CEO, to be honest. All the confidence, none of the skills. Or some of the skills.
And I'm just trying to paint this. Have you got some sandy beaches, or are they pebbly?
No, they're pebbly beaches. Or rocky. They're big pebbles. Or small pebbles.
And
so
barnacles.
The water's very, very clear.
Right. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? I'll never forget my sister falling into some barnacles when we were small, and that was just nasty. But I learned to swim in a swimming pool, so I haven't done that much swimming in the sea, really. Don't know.
Oh yeah, I've probably done more wild swimming than I have, so rivers and sea, than I have. Because where I grew up in Herzegovina, that we had a river with many swimming points. So we used to spend our 2.5 months summer holidays going to the river every single day, and the sea on Sundays.
Couldn't do that in Radcliffe-on-Trent. River Trent. Don't want to jump in that. That wouldn't have been good.
I think Nick's swum in the Trent. I'm not sure if it was on purpose. Anyway, yes. So yeah, that's big news in our house. I think that'll do us, won't it? That's a nice story. Sets the scene. Other things have been happening, but I think they'll come out during the week. Some good, lots of good things, and then a few really. I still cannot be surprised enough or shocked enough by people who've got the energy to be nasty at the moment. It's like the whole world is in some sort of, let's all, roller coaster of one day you're fine and the next day like, oh my God, there's a pandemic, we're doomed. And then people still can be asked to just be arseholes. I mean, what?
Yeah,
why can you just go away?
It's incredible.
It's not. It is. I find it incredible. Anyway, I've resolved this week that I shall not work with anyone who's can be bothered to be like that. Good. So that's that. How are you, Michael?
How am I? I released this video. That's been the main thing that's happened this week, where I sort of talk about a bit of my history, demonstrate a new feature in my app, talk about some things about my app. And it's been an interesting week because, well, just getting the video out was like really painful to just get over the procrastination has not been like that for a long time. There wasn't a lot to do, but I just do anything but finish this video for some reason, because I think I was sort of feeling quite like exposed, and also like because it was sort of like I felt like I'd achieved quite a high quality. I was like, it just sort of like makes me extra nervous about putting it out in case people just don't give a shit or don't like it or don't say anything. It's really the apathy that's the killer. But what's actually been really nice is like I put, if you could share this, but lots of people, including you, and for which I'm very grateful, have been actively like sharing it, but like sharing it in a way that's saying like, Michael is great. And he's made this thing. Like, my friend Michael has made this thing, and he's really brilliant. And I sent it to that, that guy that I vaguely thought might be mentoring. I just sent it to him and he was like, you're awesome, Michael, which is like a nice thing to hear after, well, why you wouldn't make a song that shit, would you? Like a couple of years ago. Like, it was just like, you're awesome. Okay. I mean, and it's a weird situation where like, I kind of want people to like the app, but I guess, I would really like them to like me. But that sort of scares me and makes me feel really uncomfortable and really weird. But like, it's kind of a necessary step to them, like wanting to give me some stuff or, even listen to this podcast. Yeah, I'm not sure about that, Michael, to start with. But,
It'd be interesting if there was a mirror comment where I used to like Ivanka until I listened to a podcast. I'm like, anyway, yes. So you've had a week.
But I've had an interesting week, and I've still not seen, but like even on Reddit, like, oh, how can I? Has anyone tried this? Or can I? Oh, yeah, no, I'm really interested in it. And then on the forums, and I've also had, and it's also helped like the people that I've said they're going to give me a bit of support. It's helped kind of catalyze them, sort of like putting some stuff on paper as well. So I've got quite a lot of stuff to do, but I'm feeling like exhausted and emotional, and like I don't know how to deal with. Well, there's this weird phenomenon of, when you're just putting tons and tons and tons and tons of work into something and you get nothing, like it's just total apathy. You sort of get used to that, but once you sort of move the needle as a little bit, it sort of feels different. It's like it really hammers home how much energy you can sort of compare two values now and see, okay, well, this tiny little twitch was the result of like a year's concentrated effort, or several months of concentrated effort, and you just go there. It sort of makes you go, okay, have I got another one of these in me to move it again by this non-amount? Or is it going to accelerate? Hopefully it accelerates, and maybe the fact I should be just excited that finally some people have got their heads around what I'm doing. I've managed to explain it in a way that people are like on board with. finally. I don't know. I'm having a lot of feelings, a lot of conflicting feelings, having to have a little stop, just having to still kind of like not feeling like working on it all that much, still feeling a bit exhausted. I keep giving myself a stress headache this week by working too long, and just the burnout is definitely on the cards again. I'm sick of how regularly this happens, and I'm just like, I sort of want to take a break, but I don't want to just play Zelda for a week, 2 weeks. I kind of need to do something if I do stop working for a few days. But yeah, that's anyway. That's where I am. We can talk more about all this stuff.
So much
in the body of the episode.
So what are we talking about though this week?
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about some of the concepts that are in this app that I've made, and just this pursuit of happiness idea. Maybe we can start from that. Like, my reason for pursuing happiness was that I realised that rather than being like a sort of mark of stupidity, that I kind of feel like I sort of believed that until my mid-20s, probably, whether I knew it or not. To experience that in a way, experience the benefits of happiness, which turned out to suddenly not wasting all that brain power on sort of insecurity and worries and fears. Like, suddenly just like it all just turns into positive momentum when you're happy. I've found, although I do seem to be mean to people more casually when I'm happier, which is something I've had to figure out as well. Because when I'm feeling resilient, I feel like everyone else is resilient as well, so I can like really ramp up the piss taking. But yeah, like happiness as a goal in itself, like I used to have these flyers that said no one ever pursues happiness as a means to something else. But I sort of pursue it as a means to being cleverer.
Okay.
Sorry,
I've never
just giving you a soup to dig through there.
Brain soup, my favourite. I think, you said so many things. Resilience, happiness as a way to get somewhere. Happiness as a way to... I think this thing about idiocy and happiness, I think that's really interesting, basically, because I think that, we've talked about before, like this idea that you can be optimistic about the world, or that you want to collaborate, or somehow we've been persuaded that is in some way stupid, and only hippies do it who don't have. So if you want to be optimistic and hopeful and want to share, then you're so I think there is something in there about being positive, or positivity, or positive interactions with each other are somehow not smart. And being able to feel happy is not smart. And I don't know where that comes from, but I can see it. So I'm not answering that at all. I'm just acknowledging what you said, because I need to think about that. I think there's something about the resilience is an interesting one. I emailed somebody at the beginning of this lockdown, and I said, I hope you're all well and managing to stay happy. And he said, the objective is we work on our resilience and hope to be happy occasionally. Like it's, resilience is actually more and more so a word that, especially if you get into parenting and you're trying to teach your child resilience. Because that is what is going to help them be a happier, have a happier life, or notice a happier life. So that's one thing that I think is interesting. I've done some post-its here so that I can analyse the brain suit. And then I think there's something. So one thing about what you were saying about your Changes app is that by its very nature, it's going to take time to work, or to be its benefits to be noticeable by somebody, and I think that makes it much harder to sell.
Yeah,
because I'm not going to download this app and then go, oh it feels so much better now.
Exactly.
You have to invest a lot
Yeah.
into understanding your peaks and troughs. I think there's something in that makes, when you put out a video or you put something out or making yourself vulnerable, I think there's something about, in this, by its very nature, it's going to take ages for you to see the benefit.
Yeah, I think people sort of resist, like, I think even the fact that it is work, and I think it's important to talk about, like, people think that, like, relationships and life and happiness should just sort of happen, and that there's no, like, actual effort. No effort should be required for me to be happy. Like, no, I think like anything worth having, if you've got to put some focus onto it. You've got to put some energy into it. You've got to do some things that scare you in order to progress into a situation that's going to make you feel better than you do now. And I'm sort of sliding off the letting you respond to my other points by throwing in some new stuff. But
yeah,
I feel like the very nature of change is that you can't make a change without losing something that you had. So people are really scared to change anything, but there is no way to improve your situation without changing it. So a lot of people are stuck in this situation where they won't ever change anything because it's just safer to just protect the status quo, however terrible that is. And then that gets into the disaster capitalism subject, and they're just like, you sort of wait for a disaster before making any sort of change. And that's probably the worst time to do it. And the sort of conscious pursuit of improving and making progress in your life, beyond the scorekeeping related stuff, oh, can I get a pay rise? Can I get a newer car? Like, into your actual emotional health, it's something that very few people realise that you've got to put some work into.
Well, it also requires you to be brave.
Yes.
And, you know, that's daunting. Any change requires you to be brave, or any, that change comes with loss, makes it incredibly difficult to commit to change, even if what you lose might be bad, at least it's familiar.
Yeah.
And familiar is somehow comfortable. But, you know, you and I are both people like us. No, but we're both people who do actually, I don't know, see our lives as some kind of ongoing project. That, you know what I mean? You know, like you're just moving from one bit to another.
And partly through necessity, like we've had to like deal with something or other that's meant that we've had to realise, you know, I have no choice but to work on myself. Otherwise, I'd just be a bitter, you know, failing. It's always just been a fact of life that I've got to sort of like figure out my problems. I think like many people, you know, they've never quite been, I don't know. For most people, that's not something that's a priority at all, and it's always been a priority for me. But yeah, I think that, and I think what I've been thinking, how I've been thinking about this a bit is certainly in the light of the pandemic, like a change. If we are just collections of behaviours and habits, change is scary because there's a lot of overhead to figuring out some new behaviours and habits. If it, like,
well, you're just
even if it's the pandemic,
somebody else.
Yeah, you kind of are someone else, aren't you? You're going to become someone different. But if that's a pandemic hitting, or if it's a relationship ending, or like suddenly all these things that I've got that. I know what I do on Saturdays. I know what I do on Friday. I know what I'm going to cook. I know where I'm going to go. Suddenly all that stuff is sort of out the window, and you've just got a load of work to do to figure out how, like, a new situation. So, of course, it's daunting to make that change. It took me a long time, just the quitting drinking thing, like, you know, it took a long time to figure out, even smoking, like discovering nicotine-free tobacco for emergencies, and discovering like alcohol-free beer, like was I needed something like that in my life so much, like, because I got so sick of, I didn't want to drink water. Each bar had something different. They'd always offer you this saccharine, sugary ginger beer. Like, you want anything alcohol-free? Yes, this disgusting sugar drink. No, I don't want it. And you sort of like have to develop all these new strategies, and like it's a lot of work to make a change. If you haven't said that I'm making this change, then it's just easier just to slip back into the old habits as well. Like, if you're not like consciously going, okay, we're doing this, because if the minute that you have to figure out, oh, well, you know, if a different habit, you just kind of undo the change instead, then I think that's just a recipe for stagnation and, you know.
Yeah. I think though, there's one thing that we need to go back to is the your reaction to all the positive.
Yes, therapy
stuff, the therapy piece.
Why? I always like my dad used to say to me, and my stepmom used to say to me, like, of course we love you. It's just sometimes I don't like you. And I think that's like, I just like, so I've always like felt uncomfortable with I've never felt like likable or like that anyone would like me at all. So I've always been super defensive in sort of like, obviously, how unlikable can I think I am if I want to record myself, like put it out into the world every week? But then I think it's easy for me to chalk up the absence of millions of listeners to kind of some sort of inherent acquired taste to who I am. But then like when I'm seeing like people, like so many people are like, he's such a nice person. I'm like, I guess I don't feel like I'm a nice person, but maybe because I'm overcompensating so much for not feeling like a nice person, people think I'm a nice person somehow. Like, idiots.
Oh, it's very hard, isn't it?
Flip. And there's imposter syndrome in there, but that's, there's like not wanting to believe it. I don't know. And then there's also like, well, I've sunk so much time into work, just I've got used to the idea that people don't. So when people overtly say they do, I don't know where that goes. Like I have no box in my brain for those comments. Like I've only got boxes for being resilient against negative things. I haven't got any boxes for storing positive things. How does that work?
I think you just need to get that box.
Yeah. How do you get that box?
I think it's the same box in where you count your blessings and you count your kindness, and because I mean, two things spring to mind. One, they're not directly related, but this is following my brain. One, I saw a tweet this morning. Somebody tweeted, sometimes when I'm watching QI, I don't think I'm watching because I like it, but because I want it to like me.
And that's the thing, like people like people that seem to like them, and we're all the same. Like it's not even, no one's even thinking about you. Like they're just like, if someone seems to like, some people I really like have been saying nice things about me. That's the thing. It's like nice. It's because it's people I like a lot, like saying nice things about me. Like, oh, well, that's cool. Because he's cool. She's cool. It's nice when cool people are saying nice things about you. It's all very well when, I'll never forget that phrasing of like Louis C.K. Yes, I know, cancelled. But Louis C.K. saying like, oh, you put something on Facebook and then there's no comments, and then there is one comment, but it's someone that's not that cool, and you're like, you just want someone cool to say something. So there's that sort of feeling on Facebook.
If it's only one person, but it's somebody you really admire, it's like, oh, thanks. Then it counts for it. It's like, but it equal on the other end of the spectrum. It's like having people that you don't admire saying bad things about you is actually quite easy to dismiss. It's like, well, you're an idiot.
Yeah, I suppose.
Or is it easier?
I don't know how good I am at dismissing any of that. Well, no, I think I've definitely got resilient. A lot of this comes to resilience. But there is this fact that you shouldn't, if you've developed the skills to resist criticism, that is also applied to sort of like positivity. And there's that thing of like, celebrities that have to sort of ignore the positive reviews as well as the negative reviews, because if you sort of start believing your own hype, then you turn into a monster probably, or you just like start to need it, like in a really unhealthy way.
But I think it's also a thing of like confirmation bias. I am likable. Look, these 3 people said I'm likable. There's some people over here said that you're not likable. Well, I was what? So I think there is, but how about flipping it differently and thinking that everybody's walking around going, nobody likes me, and we know likable, and we know that's mostly true. Yeah. And I think remembering to take the time to say to people, oh, really, I haven't seen you for ages. How are you? I really like talking to you. I haven't seen you, like, or, that thing you did, that's really cool. I like that thing that you did. It's like taking the time to give people...
reassure people.
Reassurance.
I mean, Sharon is like a reassurance machine. Like I like she has just got a bottomless pit of like affection and like attention, and she just and sometimes I'm like, when she is having an off day and I'm not getting a fire hose of love from her, like I start to feel like really a bit lost and a bit scared, and it's a weird thing because like the level that you're used to in a way sort of sets your expectations, and that sort of sets the baseline, and I don't know, it's tricky. I think the celebration thing that we touched on, and I know Sharon's got she's got like an email folder where she puts the nice complimentary emails that she gets. So she's got this little stash of sort of messages, and she's got like, a framed email from her dad on the bedside table, like that's just said some really nice things. So, because I had this thing yesterday, like one person put this big thing on Facebook, and I was like, I kind of want to print that out and just keep that in my peripheral vision and keep a few of those, just, I don't know, like put them on the walls so that I sort of remember that I'm building something. And then I clicked, I was like, well, I can't quite, a screen print won't quite work, so I'll just try and save that. I couldn't see how to save it. And then halfway through the day, I tried to click on it and it had gone. I was like, it's gone, and also he doesn't like me anymore, and it's a disaster. And then I did drop him a message, and then it did sort of reappear, and I don't know what happened, if it was just like a different server. My sister always gave me a very good bit of advice, was she if someone doesn't text back, she will try and assume technical problems before she assumes relationship disaster. Yeah. So let's that's something we've got to remember. But I think like the celebration, I think there's two things there. There's like the keepsake aspect of like try and remember those good moments and the nice things people have said, but also like let's mark this occasion as a success.
But also allow yourself to go to notice that you felt nice.
But that's the thing, like, it's like
that it's nice. This is nice.
But this is my face when I read someone saying something really complimentary. It's like, it's kind of like fear, and like there's like a knot in my stomach as I read it, and I just want to go away and like have it, because it's like, I don't know, like I guess I'm still broken in my brain if that's how I react to that. It's just one of those things that like, and then you're sort of addicted to it as well, and you're checking, and then I'll check, and then there'll be another one where someone says, I think you're really cool for doing this. And I'll be like, and literally this happened yesterday, and it was someone on Reddit said something nice, and it was just, that was the one that broke the camel's back, and I just have to sit down and just go, I don't know what these feelings are. My next one is to submit it to the Apple editorial team. I didn't realise there was a form for my main marketing idea of this app, which was to get Apple to feature it. I never Googled how to get featured by Apple. Oh, they've got a form, which I can do a really good job of filling out because I do all the things they say. But I'm that's the thing that I'm currently scared about. And if Apple goes, yeah, and promotes it, then we're off to the races, because that's how people download apps. But it's just scary, and you feel like you're in a direction, and I don't know. I don't think who wants to hear about my up brain? Is anyone identifying with this? I don't know. Is it just me?
Well, I don't think. I think it's. But I don't. I think. Again, as a qualified psychotherapist,
yes,
as a person with no qualifications whatsoever in any form of therapy, these are some of my observations. One is, I think you just need to practice. And I think you're jumping ahead. You're going, yes, but what does it mean? Is it going to mean, but this still doesn't mean that I'm going to get loads of downloads. This still doesn't mean that, but this still doesn't mean. Just read the message and go, nice. Thanks. And just accept it for what it is, which is a single message that may or may not lead anywhere, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy the message. Is my and I think it's very hard to I I see this. So my daughter does something where she'll go, yeah, but what tomorrow? But I don't want Daddy to do bedtime because I read longer. Because I like reading her stories. So I'll stay there for like half an hour reading stories. And that is my secret to why I am the preferred parent for bedtime. It's like, ha. But anyway, so she's oh, is it Daddy's turn to bedtime, Mummy? And then she has to kind of go, I'd prefer Daddy, Mummy. And then obviously she has to backtrack because she loves Daddy, but he just doesn't read as much. And we go, look, it's lunchtime. Let's not worry about who's doing bedtime. Let's just enjoy the moment. And so she started doing that back to us when we go, so what do you fancy for, we start talking about something that she doesn't want us to commit to, right? Later on, we're going to be going to visit so-and-so. I don't really want to go and visit so-and-so, she'll say. And we'll go, well, we've got to. And then she'll go, let's not talk about that because that's happening later. So I can imagine us going, you need to do your homework at some point. And she's going to go, let's not talk about the homework now. I mean, my failure to finish medicine, I mean, that's 20 years from now, so I think we may have, there may be some re-education required. But there is this thing about just going, do you know what? Like last night, I'll give you an example from a grown-up, not a child. Last night, I finished work, we went for a little swim, and then we went out for dinner for the first time in ages. And we sat outside, socially distanced, blah, 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 on the corner in this beautiful Mediterranean village that we live in. You're just sitting there, people are walking by, my daughter's running around with the other children, the dogs are there, we're saying hello to lots of people. It's just nice. And I had this moment of, on the one hand, I'm like, there's a global pandemic, there's methane leaking into the sea, it's all good. But you know what? Right now, in this moment, I am happy. This is happy, I feel very happy, I feel very content, I'm just like satisfied, and I'll worry about all this other stuff later. And if I hadn't said it out loud to Nick, it might have passed.
Yeah. So
maybe it's like I think, it's important. I think it's important. Like the celebration could just be sharing, look what I just got, or people that, but then so it's like, I think there's something about making yourself stop and just notice a nice thing.
And we have our gratitude. We do have our gratitude thing that we do in our house on Fridays, where we try and write down. So we've got like a record of the last several months of nice little things that happened this week, and then of course my app, like I can add in an entry, but I haven't got a starred rating for this week, which is bad. Like I really should have put in, but because I was having all these complicated feelings about it, it didn't really make it into being something that's bookmarked. So it's like maybe that's something that I shouldn't be waiting passively to have the feeling of that moment of happiness, but actually actively like convince myself, like overcome the bullshit that's going on and the doubts, and actually pull myself back into the moment and go, okay, this was a success. Let's save this moment. Let's find the energy to feel good about it. Let's find that happiness. Let's find that appreciation, and let's just set it onto the mantelpiece, appreciate it.
Yeah.
And put a little star in Changes app. And then when I'm scrolling up, I'll be like, yes, I did something a few weeks ago that was cool. If you like this podcast, why not tell your influencer friend or a journalist or someone that will tell other people that they like it? That we just, the main thing we want is some more listenership. I haven't actually checked the numbers for a while. We might have millions of listeners for all I know. But I'm pretty sure we don't have that many. So, if you did, as press, we need that write-up on the BBC blog that says, hey, new podcasts to listen to. They've been going on for nearly 3 years, and it's amazing that I've only just discovered them. But I really enjoyed the musical interjections, and I really enjoyed the unique perspective that they both bring to the table. So we just want some of that shit so that people go, yeah, okay, I'll listen to that. Have you got some plugs, Anka?
Yes. Yes, I agree with what you just said. Have I got some plugs?
Fantasising about an article.
Yes. I'm going to go with brightonnaturalhealthcentre.org.uk again. Openings very soon on the 27th, not the 25th, like I said last week.
Of July 2020.
It has been cleaned within an inch of its life, and the distance between yoga mats has been measured very carefully, and there will still be Zooming and there will be in-person stuff, and everything will be done to try and help everyone keep well and happy. So go there.
Sounds good. If you want to sort of help me live my life, you could go to goodtohear.co.uk/free and get my book, Tracking Happiness, which tells you all about happiness tracking and mood tracking. And I send some emails. I put quite a lot of work into my little emails, and there's even a video this week. I made a video, and I do some weekly updates on there. And it's, there's all sorts of things going on there. And it's just if you want to sort of stay on top of thinking about yourself, who doesn't want to do that?
I enjoyed your video.
Thank you. I think a lot of things came together, which I was quite proud of. Like, I had a haircut, I made the background nice,
Yeah, I could see lots of attention to detail. I was also quite pleased with my verbiage I came up for the share on Facebook.
Yes. That was great.
The so what? Maybe that's where the idiocy thing comes back round again as well. It's like, I think if you're if you identify as clever, then you think critiquing things is an important part of critical thinking, is an important part of cleverness. Therefore, a data point must be examined.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, but what does it mean? It doesn't come. It's nothing. But just because you're going to add it off and create, just have a moment and go,
And it's like
says I'm clever.
But then it's like you've got 5 of these data points that you just want to put as outliers, and this is a pattern now that doesn't fit with my preconceived ideas in my heart. I have to draw a new line. But let's pivot to the sort of changes discussion a bit via cleverness, because something I've noticed and that I think is interesting about clever people, when it comes to either making changes or dealing with like poisonous or negative situations or like addictions, which I kind of think that withdrawal thing sort of is the same in a relationship as it is with, some drug. When you're having strong feelings about something, especially if there's fear, especially if there's like reluctance to make a change, the smarter people are more frustrating because they find more clever ways to justify their not making the change or to explain away the data, or it's almost like the more brain power you've got, the better you are at finding an excuse to keep smoking. Like finding a reason. And as you're feeling uncomfortable, I always say it hijacks your intelligence. Like the fear, the emotions can just hijack it and put it to work until it finds a way that it gets what it wants, which is just keep doing the thing a lot of the time.
Yeah, because the reality is that to make a change, often all you need to do is find a hook that convinces you, is enough for you to convince yourself in a moment. Like one of my friends gave up smoking because he didn't read the Alan Carr book. He read an article in which he described smoking as like wearing a tight pair of shoes for the relief of taking them off. Yeah. And he was like, I don't need to analyse this any further. This makes sense to me. I'm going to go with it. And I think, learning that you don't need to go, but, or but, or, you just need to go, that'll do. That's a good enough explanation. I'll take it.
And if you look in terms of the outcome that you want, which is I want to improve my situation or I want to not smoke anymore, then that's what I call belief hacking. It's like you just, I'll take that thing that I'm finding convincing and I'm not going to start questioning it or trying to take it apart because it's really useful and it's enough. And if I do, then I'm not going to make the change.
Useful and enough is good.
I'm thinking about the I've been talking to someone this week that's was just sort of broken up with a long-term partner. I don't want to go into too much about it, but sort of seeing someone like on the cusp of, like, at the end of a relationship, sort of in denial about the fact that they're at the end of the relationship. And I think back to my I quit drinking story, and I think, the only way I was able to do that was by not thinking that was what I was doing. I was like, this is an experiment. I'm just going to try this for a bit. I'm going to commit to trying it. Like, otherwise it's definitely not going to happen. But it's an experiment. It's an idea. It's like, of course, I'm not. The idea that I'll never drink alcohol ever again is too
absurd,
crazy. So the idea that I'm going to like pick up an app and go, right, I have quit drinking today. Yeah, I think with bravery you can do that. But when you said, like, with your move to Croatia, where you still live in Brighton, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. How long have you been in Brač?
Since before Christmas.
So a year, 9,
but it's
7, 8
just a break.
Months.
We're just visiting.
Just a break, just visiting. So Ivanka has not emigrated to a new country. She is merely visiting temporarily. And we do this, like, you have the 5, the denial, the bargaining, that's all part of a change or a loss, or it's hard to sort of admit to yourself or say, okay, this is all over, because it's almost too much at once, and you sort of have to retroactively go, okay, that's actually when the change happened, but I didn't really believe it was happening, and I was sort of hoping that we'd get back together, or hoping that I'd come back and for a few days, weeks, months. But really, the healthiest thing to do is realize that, well, and this was some good relationship advice I had after a breakup, was like, even if you did get back together, it would never be the same as it was before. It would be a new thing. So you can't rewind and go back to how it was. So, like, the only way is forward. So it's a change, like, however you look at it.
Yeah. But I think the try this for a bit is a good technique for starting to make a change.
We're just going to have a break from each other for a month and not talk to each other. It's like... but that's kind of a negative, but in like a positive scenario, like I don't know if I want to become a runner, but I'm gonna try running for a month and see how it feels, or I'm gonna try not eating meat for a month and see how it feels, or I'm gonna try not drinking and see how it feels. And it's like, but you can only see how it feels if you actually do it properly for that period, and it's much easier to commit. And there's a commitment thing floating around here. And someone shared like 1 year no booze or something. It was some sort of thing, and I was like, I don't know, but it shouldn't be a year. There shouldn't be. If you put an end on it, then people will start up again. And it's easy to quit, and then you don't. And all you do by putting a time limit on it is that you tempt people to having another drink, and then that gets the cycle started again if they don't realise that the drink is a tight pair of shoes that you take off, blah 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 blah. I don't
know what you're talking about.
Okay, fine.
I'm an alcoholic now. Yeah, I had a whole evening where I didn't drink last week. Woo.
Oh well. I remember having one evening where I didn't drink and feeling proud of it. But I mean, there's one thing with all this making changes and happiness is, like, you've just got to try different techniques, because that is truth, that's the truth of it. There is no one true path for everybody. There really isn't. And one of the things that your app allows for is that this isn't like me telling you that these are the steps that are going to help you. You must run 5, from couch to 5K, or you must not drink in October or whatever. It's like, why don't you start writing some thoughts down during the course of your days and look back after a month and see if there are any patterns? Yeah.
That's what your app is selling.
Yeah, and then try something and gather some data
and then see what it does.
Like, because that's the other thing with this, like, breakup conversations I was having yesterday, was like, remember how this feels now. Remember this terrible feeling, and like, I'm not going to start pitching my app to this, to anyone when they're in that state. But like, the reason I have the app is like, and the things I regret the most is not recording some of these. But like, if you've got a record of how bad that feeling was, it's harder to justify sort of undoing that progress.
Yeah.
And again, it comes back to the smoking thing. It's like the withdrawal's worst in the first few days. Coffee actually was the worst one for me. But worse in the first few days. And once you're over that hump, like you've done the bulk of the hard work. And now it's just like, well, your beliefs that are going to bring you back, but then they're going to take you back, and then maybe a year later you break up again, and now you've got to go through this bit again. So, like, before you just jump back into something because it's easier, that you know isn't healthy, maybe just check your app and just see how densely the miserable feelings were packed during that period following. Think, like, is it worth... But I mean, I suppose the other side of that coin is being scared to get into the next relationship because that might end, and then you'll have to go through this again. God,
one thing I did say was that we both like data, but in slightly different ways. So, for example, I've always liked tracking how far I rode my bicycle and how fast I went, and like before apps in the olden days. My daughter did say that to my husband this morning. Daddy, you were born in the olden days, weren't you? Anyway, in the olden days where you used to have to get one of those odometers and fit it to your bicycle, I loved knowing how far I'd been and how far I'd been on my odometer and how far I'd been since I bought my bicycle. Blah, blah, blah. I've always loved that. And I do like my Wi-Fi scales, my Withings app. Yeah. But with that's much better than the odometer because it gives me trends as well as, and then sometimes with my Apple activity stuff I don't use as much, but I remember thinking that I wasn't doing a great deal of exercise, and then looking back and realizing that predominantly I close all the circles on most on most days, so therefore, and so it's nice to have that data. The thing that is hot, but my scales, all I have to do is stand on the scales every morning. Yeah, I don't have to do anything, and I think
although even that can be sometimes you can get out of the habit, and then you start to be scared of doing it, and if you don't,
and it took me a couple of weeks to get used to it because being a person who as a teenager was a bit quite good at avoiding food and all that business. It's like. I've always counselled myself against using weight as a measure of anything. But actually, if you view it as a trend, it's incredibly useful to know, to just, this was when I had my child, look how much I weighed then, and then here's some other things. And, it's like and it just reminds you, if you wake up in the morning, you wait, and I've just got used to the fluctuations and all those kind of things. It just becomes cool and okay and not a big deal. But the day that I fluctuate really high, I'll go, perhaps today no pudding, that kind of stuff. But there's a getting used to it and a habit forming element. The habit that you need to form is recording the data.
Yeah,
and that's not always the same for everybody. I think the
ways to do it. We should probably wrap up pretty soon, but I do think you can. I think in terms of those DNA tests that can maybe show you if you're susceptible to some kind of cancer or whatever it is. A lot of people are like, oh, I just wouldn't want to know, and people are scared, and it's like, well, it's not going to. Not looking at it won't change it, and surely you want to know. And it's and what's in your head is often a lot worse than what the data actually tells you. So, if you haven't weighed yourself for a few days and you sort of feel like you just had a cake, and chocorato keiki is Japanese for chocolate cake, by the way.
Are you learning Japanese
chocorato
now?
Keiki, yeah. I'm 40 days in to my Japanese learning. It's rushing past my ears, and I'm remembering about 3 things, but at least I've got a baseline. You sort of feel, and then when you finally do weigh yourself again, you're like, oh, that's fine. And once you start picking up the courage to actually look at, and I think it's probably the same for happiness and that kind of thing. The story in your brain is that I'm just having a miserable time, and what I think is good about data and tracking it is that you can actually see, well, it's not all the time. Actually, it's not that much of the time. Yeah. And it's hard to argue with that sort of hard data. But you've just got to be brave enough to look at it.
And I think that's the thing. Like, even in a very sad day, you could walk to the shops and somebody smiles and says hello, or something happens that actually is just a moment of niceness.
Yeah.
Even if it, didn't necessarily fill your heart with joy, it's still like a nice moment. Yeah. And I think I'm all for counting those, to be honest. But I don't use my Changes app.
Well,
I've not got into it.
I'm not putting that in the recording.
He says, "How are you?" And I go, "I don't know. It's a lot. That's a big question."
Need to get into, well, that's
no, don't.
Well, I am actually going to leave this in. Like that's because then it, instead of being, oh, now I've got to boil down 3 weeks worth of data, you're just like, no, right now, yes, happy face, sad face. That's all you got to do. Yeah, and then if you see some tags that are like, oh yeah, that's been, and then you can just do it. You don't even have to write anything. So
Okay.
But it's just like the scales. You just got to get into the habit, and then it's just not even something you think about. And now I get a little bit anxious if did I miss the alert? No, it hasn't come up yet today.
Cool.
And then like my worst mistake with it was lapsing my happiness data for like 3 or 4 years, and now there's a big bloody blank bit in my data, which is really annoying. I want to see that. I want to continuously. I haven't got the Brexit one. I haven't got the Trump event. Like I wish I had those. I wish I had those.
So many bad things.
Thanks for listening. If you like it, go to grandpodcast.com and click on buttons. Where can people find you, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
Find me at Michael Forrest on Twitter. MichaelForrest on Twitter. And there's a Patreon. If you want to do that, you can do that. That's like a monthly thing. Support the podcast, join our Slack. And other than that, keep the endings short now that we've got ads in the middle, kinda. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Changes is great. Bye.
Bye.